At one point, I decided I just want to get to know this guy. He seems sharp.
And he was very determined.
I was really just looking for friends, to be honest.
It's a great pickup line.
And you could just see the light bulb click.
And where my head went was, I want to be part of your real estate business.
When Kyle first told me about you and what you were doing, I thought you were like a crooked realtor.
People overestimate what they can do in a year. They underestimate what they can do in a decade.
And there's so much more that lands in life that isn't always on a balance sheet.
I had the idea that this should be a new business altogether.
And so I could see very, very clearly the simplicity of the model in Lead Zolo.
Pay per lead shifts the power dynamic, changes the temperature.
Which is exactly how Lead Zolo started.
This would not be what it is today without that pivot.
That basically led to our next and first clients.
What sells in influencer space is FOMO. There has been a lot that's transpired. There has been a lot of pivots. And so it's been fun literally being back there from day one and seeing it. And being completely objective too, like not having a dog in the fight, being a customer to a certain extent. But yeah, it's been fun. Fun to watch.
Well, with that, I think that's a great intro to this episode.
Absolutely. So let's get an intro on you, Preston. Who are you?
Heyo.
Preston Dahl.
Yeah, career-wise. So I've been doing real estate full time for 10 years. I bought a house just off the MLS in 2013, and then 2015, 16, probably about 17, 18. Bought the first one, did all the rehab myself. That was always a conundrum. Do I do the rehab myself? All the smart people say you shouldn't. And then just kept progressing.
So were you doing like any mentorships at the time or a course? Like how, like
Bigger
why?
Pockets.
Bigger Pockets.
Bigger Pockets. Brandon Turner was still there. He was a big component. I was in the forums. That was a big part. It was really Bigger Pockets that was kind of the driving force in its prime. Honestly, I think when they had just started building out that platform, Brandon Turner had just started that podcast and the BRRRR strategy had just kind of come out. And what's the BRRRR strategy? So BRRRR is it's a buy and hold rental strategy. And it's harder to do in today's interest rates, but it's where you buy, rent, rehab, refinance, and repeat. You're essentially buying a house, making it really nice, and then you're capturing all that equity through a refinance. Then you have that as a rental property, and you take the equity out that you've had in the refinance, and you grow the portfolio that way, and you repeat it. You're
using that refi cash infusion to pay yourself and to that's your next down for your next one.
Right. Because really the goal in real estate is it all starts with and hinges on a deal. And I think that's why what you guys do is so valuable and so helpful is that will never leave real estate and the value that we provide in the off-market space and what you guys provide us who do the deals in the off-market space in Lead Zolo, it's all about a deal. No matter how you find it, no matter what it looks like, no matter where it's located, what we're doing is we are looking for equity.
Yeah.
We're looking for an asset that we can either add value to or find value to. And then all the niches of real estate, which there's many, we're really just looking, how are we going to leverage that?
Yep.
How are we going to leverage that equity in a way that makes sense to us?
Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, and I'm getting way out in the weeds here probably, but that's all we're trying to do is just trying to, we find an asset, what's our business model, and then what's our leverage point that we're pulling on.
This is a perfect start. Sorry. I just want to set the table a little bit because Preston's jumping right into real estate investing,
it's hard.
Which is great. Which is exactly how Lead Zolo started, right? Is Kyle's not ignorant to it. I was ignorant to it. But we were running ads for webinar funnels and info products, and then you started with all of the knowledge you have, talking about these things, and it started with a conversation with you and Kyle, and so. Kyle, where did this conversation go when it first started?
Before we get too far into that, Preston's forgetting the most important part of his biography. His reality TV stardom.
Yes. What? Yeah, so that was a part of it, actually. So the first real estate investment deal I ever did was on a reality TV show. And so it's kind of interesting so I'm in BRRRR. I'm on the forums, and I was so, you look back in your career and the things that you just get stuck on, that you're just tore over this one question, and you look back, you're like, man, why were you so tore up on that question? But the thing I was so tore up on is, do I self-perform the rehab? I like that work. I enjoy that work. I wanted to buy some tools. And so that was one of the things that just had me so tore up is, do I do the work?
Right.
And the business conundrum was, well, if you want to scale, you need to hire that work out, right?
Yep.
And leverage your time. And then there's this other side of like, well, I could literally save tens of thousands of dollars by doing the work myself.
And it's your first flip. Like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of understand the intricacies and like the things that you don't know, and
right.
whatnot.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I think, no matter where you go and grow as an entrepreneur, that question can still reign. So I was in the forums with that question of like, I've got this flip, I'm going to do it. Do I do the rehab myself? And then the next thing I know, that this New York producer is calling and I think it's a scam. And no, it was real. It was an episode of like a DIY network that doesn't even exist anymore. And but
so you were in the forums, like asking these questions, like,
and it blew up.
So you were trying to like work this through yourself while being active in the forum, talking about it, and people were jumping on it because everybody has these questions, of course.
There were differing opinions in each camp.
Right. So you're creating a little controversy. It was getting exciting, and so some producer in New York was just like, "Dude, this is gonna get some views."
Right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so he calls, thought it was a scam, but you still...
Yeah, and then it ended up being a full-on, they came out a couple times during the course of the flip. Mm-hmm. I think Rebuilder's Remorse was the name of the episode, but we just did one episode of it. And, they paid, I think it was like $5,000 to come out to be on the show. It was really just something as a memorabilia piece.
Right.
For me. I don't know who actually ever really watched the thing. It's hard to even point people in that direction. I don't even know if it exists online.
Oh man, you gotta find that.
I know it. I have it on like DVD. I think when I do some marketing, I found put it on there.
I found it online.
Did you?
What was so for everyone listening, of course, wants to go watch this. What was the name of the show again?
So it was on the DIY network, which does not exist. I think they sold to Discovery, I believe, and Rebuilder's Remorse. It's season 7.
The name of the show is Rebuilder's Remorse?
No, the name of our episode is Rebuilder's Remorse. The name of our show was First Time Flippers. So
Flippers.
The people that they wanted to see them try to do their first flip.
Cool. Yeah. So getting back to how we kind of connected, Preston. So we were both working out of a co-working office here in sunny Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I was doing my thing, of course, with AdLeg. I had, of course, met you. There weren't a lot of people in and out of the co-working space.
Or in Grand Forks.
So we'd kind of said hi. We were cordial. At one point, I decided, like, I just want to get to know this guy a little better. He seems sharp. There's not a lot of people in town that I have kind of connected with as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And I was really just looking for friends, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I didn't grow up in this town, so I was kind of new here, was working out of my house for a while, started working out of this co-working office, didn't really have much else in terms of like socialization outside of home and the co-working office. So you were one of the first people I turned to that was like, yeah, let me get to know this guy.
Yeah.
Maybe we can become friends.
Yeah. I remember that I was sitting in the corner, and I'm a fairly outgoing guy, so I'd go talk to Kyle, and he would just kind of look and nod. He's a quiet guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I'm annoying this guy. I'm just going to leave him alone. And then I think that a couple days later, he comes over. I was, at the time, had a lot going on, and I'm a loud talker in this big open space. And I had said something, and he comes over. He's like, hey, I think we think alike. We should hang out or something like that.
It's a great pickup line.
But it's been cool because ever since then, it started as like this initiative, and it still is like of just talking shop, right? Talking how, and life, but just what's going on in your business, what challenges are you thinking through, and just someone to bounce ideas off of. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. 'Cause it's been like 4 or 5 years now.
No.
It has.
Wow. When did
We meet.
Leadzolo like start? I guess when does
We're
that?
in our 4th year.
What?
So it'll be 4 years in January.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was probably around this time 4 years ago when you guys started talking Lead Zolo stuff.
It was probably around this time, maybe a little earlier than this, 4 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago, that we just kind of started meeting. And there was never any agenda or any talk of like partnership. It was just I just wanted someone else to bounce my business ideas off of. And I rightfully assumed that you might be looking for the same thing.
Yeah. And at the time I had a business partner. So the next layer, did that first house and was growing. Now, if you want me to get into my story and kind of connect to how it maybe connected to you guys. But so I, went from Bigger Pockets, did that first deal. Okay, how do you do the next one? They're not on the MLS. They're off market. Start to learn that. And then got connected to Sub 2 when there were, I don't know, 500 people. There's now 15,000 people.
Yeah, Sub 2 is a huge community in the REI space for anybody who's not aware.
Yeah. Used to be able to get on and talk to the main guy like pretty regularly. So, and then I went to his mastermind, one of the first couples of his mastermind. And that's where the picture of scale, the picture of, okay, I can do a deal. I can do a couple of them. But then that's where the picture of what an actual business is and how do you create systems. And that's kind of the journey I'm still on, is that part. And I think that's what, Kyle does well and was ahead of me in, and that I wanted to learn from. And so at the time I'd taken a business partner, I had employees and VAs and was doing a full send. And there was we were spending minimum $5,000 a month in advertising, moved into virtual wholesaling, which is a specific strategy more for scale. And so during our conversations, there was this couple advertising vendors I was using, and I'm like learning a little more about Kyle and like, dude, this guy's a ninja on the Google, like on advertising,
right?
On online advertising. He spent a decade in the trenches on that. And so I turned the computer over on this some of the advertising we were doing, and you could just see the light bulb click. And I don't remember exactly, but I remember the conference room, and you're like, I can do this. He's like, I can do this way better.
And so what was that? You saw, I don't think we should name them, but you saw what's now a competitor of ours site and what they were charging per lead, correct?
Yeah. So Preston, you were showing me how you were getting leads. And a lead for you was someone who wanted to sell their house. The house wasn't already listed with a realtor. So it was an off-market house. And they basically wanted to sell it. They were open to selling to an investor for cash, and usually below market value.
Because they're motivated in some way.
Yeah, because that's what an investor needs. Because anybody can go buy a house that's listed.
Right.
An investor needs to find that deal, like you were saying. So a lead for you is someone who wants to sell their house, and they're willing to talk to an investor about doing that and circumventing having to list the house with a realtor.
And not currently under contract with a realtor.
Yeah. So you were showing me where you were getting these leads. And one of your main sources of leads was a pay per lead site where you would go, you would basically place a bid per county, and you would say, I'll pay $150 for a lead in this county, or I'll pay $200 for a lead in this county, or whatever it was. Might have only been $100 at the time, because you were getting leads in Grand Forks County, North Dakota, where nobody else on the platform probably was buying leads. So you're showing me this, and then you were showing me these counties, because the platform you were using, you could see what the top bid was in every county in the country. So you were showing me these counties where the top bid for one lead was like $400 or $500. And for me, that was the light bulb. It was like, people are paying $500 for a lead. And meanwhile, I'm generating leads with YouTube ads for my clients. A lead was a much different thing at the time. It was just someone entering their name and email usually. But I'm generating those leads for like $5 or $10. I was generating leads of people actually booking a sales call for sometimes $100 to $200 per lead for someone to book a sales call with somebody for whatever product it was. So for you to show me people were paying $500 for one of these leads, I thought, like I had no experience generating leads like that. We hadn't done anything like that for my company, but I could kind of wrap my head around, okay, this is what an ad would have to say for that. This is how we could do the targeting to attract a homeowner looking to sell their house. And I can't imagine it would cost more than $200 to generate a lead. Hopefully it would be less than $100. And we could make some money by generating these leads and selling them to people for $500.
And the industry, based on this model that you were looking at and the courses you were in, is already conditioned investors to be salespeople. So from a marketing standpoint, there was already a divorce between marketing and sales. So now what we're talking about in the previous episodes, where we had to be responsible for every step of the funnel and the conversions all the way across. Well, in this industry, you guys were willing to spend hundreds of dollars on a lead and take the responsibility to get that lead on the phone and take the responsibility to convert that lead. Well, just happy to pay that PPL company the $100, $200, $300, $500 per lead, and take all that onus on yourself past buying the lead. And so that was, I know when you brought this to me, that was a really desirable part for me, going, oh my God, that's where our responsibility ends, is just delivering this lead, so long as it hits the parameters of what we promised in the lead.
I think it's helpful to note on, like, in just the user's head too, that I didn't wake up and go, pay per lead, that's what we got to do.
Right.
It was more of a process of elimination where I knew to be successful, what I was tracking was how many seller conversations am I having every day? How many offers am I getting out the door every day? Let alone what am I going to do with it? Like that's a whole nother thing. But well, okay, to get a lot of seller conversations, I need a lot of leads, a lot of leads, because you have to have so many leads to get on the phone. Well, I know marketing, like it's my degree. I'm, in American culture, we're all like undergrad marketing degrees in America, like in this side of the world. But it was a process of elimination of going through cold calling, going through direct mail, and just realizing, oh my gosh, this is an animal. To just simply generate leads is an animal. To get them at the scale and volume I needed. And so when pay per lead was presented as an option, I had full control over it.
Yeah.
I could turn it on, I could turn it off. I could say this is how many, and it was a controllable in terms of this many leads, this many dollars. I can turn it off at any point, and it felt safe, felt comfortable. I could go anywhere I wanted.
And you could then just focus and refine sales and dispo, sales and dispo. You didn't have to keep learning marketing on top of it.
Or or have 3 or 4 marketing channels and that's a to-do when you're a business owner and you're a small business owner, and to manage all that. So then you start looking at ad agencies, and then they want this, retainer fee and services fee plus the hard costs. And it never was something that I could swallow that would make sense. Like, well, because you're an entrepreneur. It's like, well, then it goes back to that same question. I could do that myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And
you're like, well, gosh, I don't know anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And you need 3 months for the campaigns to optimize and
Yeah. So it just made so much sense. Leads out, spend money, leads come in the door, turn it up, turn it down, turn it off. So
I got this idea that we could run these ads for you to generate these leads. I didn't have the idea of actually turning that into a pay-per-lead company right away. And we'll get to like what the first idea was, because we tested it. And then I had the first idea, which in retrospect was not a great idea. But let's talk about the testing phase first. So I forget did we have you pay for the ads? Or I think what we did is you agreed to pay us per lead. Like
we tried a couple different models. I can't remember. I was beta testing, and it was you figuring things out. This is kind of my hard cost. And we tried a couple different models, and we were going to Florida. So part of that too is we were expanding with virtual wholesale into Florida during peak COVID, which is a whole nother animal instead of worms. But so that was kind of the impetus, is like, okay, well, we want to go to Florida. And that's where a lot of those $500 leads were. Because in my mind, I'm looking at those $500 leads going, that doesn't make sense for me.
Right.
Those people are going on appointment, have been there for years. I can't compete with that. But if I can get, because you were just kind of getting started out, if I can get those leads for in kind of more B Florida markets for just a little bit cheaper, and they're still coming in the door. So that was kind of, we were just kind of trying to tried a couple different models. I don't remember what it was, trying to help each other out.
Yeah, I think basically you were just covering the ad expense.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was just making sure not to go crazy. Like I didn't want to spend $5,000 and not be generating any leads. So we had these checks along the way of like, okay, we've spent $1,000 now and you've gotten 8 leads. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's keep it going. So we kind of did that for a while. And yeah, lo and behold, it was working. We were generating leads for $100 or less, I believe, just using YouTube ads. Do you remember how did these leads compare to the leads that you had been getting from other sources?
I had already been used to, I don't know what you guys call it, the pay-per lead part. Mm-hmm. So previously, before pay-per lead, we were doing, more cold calling, very, very cold leads who aren't ready to transact until 6 months. And you're calling them.
Yeah.
It's a very different sales conversation. You're spending most of that sales process on the initial upfront, just trying to get the temperature to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
With pay-per-lead, well, you filled out my form. I'm just here trying to respond to you.
Yeah.
It shifts the power dynamic, changes the temperature. And so, yeah, in terms of the sales process, it was beautiful. It was they're just better leads, simply,
Inbound versus outbound.
Yeah, yeah.
And
not that it was still hard and you still have to go through the sales process, but it just changed the whole dynamic of a sales process.
They were more motivated and better conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were starting to get some deals locked up from these leads.
We were, but also, so we didn't, this is a more business thing, but we were in Florida during peak COVID, figuring out, and this is more specific to the real estate industry. I'm trying to offer, these off-market real estate offers, and Zillow and these hedge funds were paying all cash, full. We're talking peak COVID, all cash, full price. They're on appointment, face to face.
Yeah,
I'm over the phone, 20% less on the offer. So, I mean, the leads were amazing. Don't get me wrong, but the business model we had was just wrong place, wrong time. We got a couple deals. I think we broke even, but it was a arduous year of hitting our head on the wall.
Yeah.
Which is another story. I wish I could say that part was, the leads were the success, but the model was just, the timing was off.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing the success, and where my head went was like, I want to be part of your real estate business. Because like, yeah, I could do marketing for you and I could sell you these leads, but I'd rather be part of this big real estate business. And what if we grow this real estate empire and I generate the leads and you do the real estate deals and do all the sales? So that's initially where my head went. Once we did the testing and realized that, yes, we could generate these leads, I would wanted to start a real estate business with you. So I actually approached you. So we were basically meeting once a week at this time. We kind of had a set time. We still do. But in one of our meetings, I said, hey, I have an idea for you.
And he was very determined. He had that Kyle look on his face, just nothing can deter him. He's going to the whiteboard. Mm-hmm. Just don't talk to him yet. Let him get it out.
Yeah. So I'd love your perspective on that encounter.
I think it was good. I think it made sense. That was the thing. We both kind of looked at it and made sense and looked at the skill sets and the strengths and what was there. And I think it went well. It was something I considered. He laid out this big whiteboard and he had the org chart, it was the vision, right? Like of how this could all work, and it would be a real estate empire and the different arms. And I think it was a good pitch. It was something that I considered, but it just, it didn't work out, I guess. It wasn't, in my opinion, it was just something that I think you pitched and it just didn't fit, right? It wasn't like a full thing, but it was just like, we kind of inched up to it and like, it just didn't fit.
And was it that like Kyle was looking at this, like, I can bring you leads, I know how to solve this problem, and where you were focused at that time with your business partner was really more on like, okay, great, but we still don't know what to do with a huge influx of leads because we're still trying to figure out sales process. We're still trying to figure out dispo strategy.
100%.
We haven't been able to crack Florida. So for you, it wasn't a match in terms of like where you thought the bottleneck currently was in your business.
100%. Right? And a lot of the current strategy, and for most people in real estate, there's two sides. There's a transacting, like active, this is how I make a salary and an income, and then there's buy and hold. Mm-hmm. And so as things are coming through the funnel, there's just so many decision points that when you add more decision makers in that funnel and what's going to happen with that asset, and that asset's going to get held over 10, 15, 20 years, like
right.
There just gets to be a lot of moving pieces. And I'd already had a business partner at that time. I was already like, there's already stuff flying everywhere, all over the place. How are we going to,
I don't want to add more to the chaos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I probably didn't have that plan thought through as well as I should have. I had the grand vision. I kind of rushed into it. And I know part of my plan was that I would own a majority of this company.
Right.
Which may or may not have been the best thing.
Right.
So yeah, like you say, it just didn't work. Like we just weren't meeting at the right point to make that work. Now, had we decided to try to move forward with that, there might not be a Lead Zolo. There might not be a pay-per-lead company at all right now. I might just be in the real estate business. But it is what it is. And
which, do you enjoy the actual real estate and business? Because it's a legitimate question to you right now. In the last couple of years, would you want to be in that industry? Money aside, just what Kyle enjoys.
Oh, I know the answer to this one.
What's the answer?
The answer is hell no.
Right? And I think you've learned. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I am very glad that it didn't work out with that proposal.
Yeah.
I can recognize that would have been an entirely different business. And it would be a business that I don't enjoy as much as the business that I'm running now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. At the time, though, I was comparing that idea and that vision to what I was doing with AdLeg, where I was starting to lose the passion for AdLeg. And I was starting, we were starting to plateau, and I was trying to think of what to do next, really. You shooting down my idea in a very nice, gentle way.
What did I say? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't even know. It wasn't... I wasn't like putting you on the spot demanding an answer.
No.
It just essentially was like...
I think it would naturally just kind of fizzled.
Yeah, I don't think this is really going to go the way that it would need to go for both of us to be happy with it. With that off the table, now I'm looking at what we had done with this test, and we could generate these leads. Well, what next? So it seemed like the logical thing would be to try to do this for other companies and try to sell them the leads. So because you had showed me how you were buying the leads yourself, I think that's kind of the first and only thing we really considered was wanting to sell leads, as opposed to, we could have done the same thing as a retainer agency and charge clients to run their ads for them like that.
And you were still in that model, I think.
With AdLeg, we were. Yeah.
Even with Leadzolo, weren't you? You were selling packages. It wasn't a clear off the shelf.
Correct.
In my mind, there was about a year. It took a while for you to get out of that ad agency, I'm selling my time mindset. If I'm honest, I kind of watched it happen. I'm like, look, it's just straight leads, just do straight leads. And so, and you can kind of speak to it too, but when you're so ingrained in a level of thinking for that, a business model or whatever, I think it took some time to just pull away that service model part of what you do, because ad agency and service model are They've been so synonymous for so long.
Yeah, we led with selling lead packages. Yeah. I mean, so it was like 30 leads per month. It was like $300 a lead or something. So we're trying to charge $9K a month. And we did it for the first little while. Yes. And some light bulbs definitely had to go off. I think we cover it in the next episode, but we definitely ran into issues with that in the same way that retainer models run into. And we're accountable for delivery. And there were markets where we could not produce leads very cheaply. And our cost to acquire a lead was higher than what we were selling them for. And then also putting us on the spot to have to deliver in a certain time frame was the biggest detriment to us. Because you have somebody in Casper, Wyoming who wants 30 leads in a month. I don't think there's 30 houses. So it became quite difficult. And we had to evolve. We definitely had to evolve.
Yeah. But initially we were selling packages of leads.
Yep.
And you really helped us with that. So not only did we have you as a case study and kind of proof of concept, an example, but then you went and posted about your experience in just a couple mastermind Facebook groups you were in. I don't know if you remember doing that or what, but that basically led to our next and first clients who were paying us to do this. Mm-hmm. These people now coming in, and Drew was doing the sales. So let's get back to where I brought Drew into this. So at first I was just talking to Preston.
I think you talked to me because I built the funnel with you for this. So I think at that point, as far as I understood the relationship, it was basically like he was another AdLeg client. It was just kind of, we're trying a new model.
It even said AdLeg. A lot of the tools or softwares,
That's so funny.
It was just there was AdLeg to it.
Yeah. So you were like, we're going to try something different with this guy, and we're working on, he's paying ad spend. And I think maybe you were giving us a split of a deal or something. I have no idea. But for you just basically came to me as the head of ops and was like, we're going to build this funnel and script these ads and try this out.
I don't even know what made me think that we should do this as a separate business, because this easily could have just been added on to AdLeg.
Yep.
We could have started, serving this niche and selling leads, and this could have just been part of AdLeg. Mm-hmm. But before we even got our first client, beyond Preston, I had the idea that this should be a new business altogether.
This would not be what it is today without that pivot. Not even close.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because we would have tried to shoehorn it into the AdLeg model. Is what we would have done.
That's crucial. That's a crucial pivot in this whole thing.
I think the most important thing for me was just recognizing that this was a completely different target customer. And we had built AdLeg up as a company that was servicing people with webinar funnels, and it was servicing course creators. So to now try to have a new division of that company that was servicing real estate investors, I just knew that was going to be really hard to try to serve both markets with one company. So the thought was, let's start a new company, and the new company is only going to be generating leads for real estate investors. And
we'd already been through the learning process of offer and niching down and that sort of thing. So to your point would be, AdLeg's already niched down to YouTube ads for webinar funnels and content or coaches and whatnot. And so how do you add this on? Especially when we knew, or you knew at this point, that they just want a result. Preston didn't give a damn what the ads looked like or the funnel looked like or what the bloody conversion rate was on the landing page.
Did they get the phone number? Are they going to pick up the phone?
Right. Yeah. Is my VSL converting? Blah, blah, blah. He cared about put the lead in my CRM and then let me deal with it. That's what I want to pay you to do. And it was just such a totally different model that it would screw up the value proposition we had for AdLeg. We'd just have to have 2 value props. And it would just make way more sense to say we're a new company and we provide leads for real estate investors. And that would just be such a concise value proposition and niche that, to your point, you can't just bolt that onto another company.
Somehow I saw enough potential with this to start that company. I remember coming to Drew. So Drew was just working for AdLeg. He was just a team member. He was director of operations. He had no equity in AdLeg at all. So I came to Drew saying, hey, I want to start this new company. We can do what we've been doing for Preston, but now we're actually going to start selling these leads to people. And I think this needs to be a new company. What do you think? Like, do you want to partner with me on this? And offered you equity in it, basically. And that's kind of, I don't know, I think that's kind of as far as I got with my side of that conversation.
Yeah.
Do you remember that conversation?
I remember the conversation. I remember being all in on it because I remember our conversation. I think that you'd already started talking to people in the mastermind group or something.
80-20. Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, it was Dan Schwartz.
80-20, which is a good group. You know, I'd spent a lot of money on masterminds, and then they all paid me back. I learned a ton from them. I was doing a lot of them at the time, but 80-20, there were legitimate people in that group, and some of them were spending $5,000 to $15,000 a month in ad spend consistently.
And that's what I was aware of at the time. And so in my mind, I went, hell yeah, because all we need, if I have equity in this company and it's just Kyle and me, like my mind immediately went to, we need like 5 clients and I'm going to be making more money with Lead Zolo than I'm making with AdLeg. And at that time in my journey, I think I'd moved on from trying to steal all of AdLeg's processes and wanted to start my own company. And I was pretty bought into the team. I was bought into you. I really enjoyed working with you. So, and I was definitely on the struggle bus dealing with everything that was going on with AdLeg and the complexity of AdLeg. And so I could see very, very clearly the simplicity of the model in Lead Zolo and the dollars. Like I could see so clearly, and I'm jumping ahead here, but when you did start posting and we were selling like a 9K a month package, I think we got our first 3 clients in like 3 weeks. So we like started out of the gate at like 30 grand in revenue. That obviously did not stabilize there. And there's a lot of things involved in cost.
And part of that's specific to the real estate industry too. Like granted, if you can, you know, I got a deal I was just telling you about earlier. It's a flip project where I can make up to 70K in a couple months.
Yeah.
And so the margins are so low. And that's not, you know, that's a home run deal. You get a couple of those a year. But that's such a large margin business that especially in our industry, we understand takes leads. Leads cost money.
Yeah.
I think our industry, we're okay to start writing checks for advertising sometimes, you know?
And for me, I knew nothing about it. Like when Kyle first told me about you and what you were doing, I thought you were like a crooked realtor, like stealing people's, like getting old ladies to sign over their deeds.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation if I can defend that one someday, but yeah.
But I was hearing about the 25K wholesale rips, the 70K flips.
Right.
And I was really infatuated with the whole situation. And I was really excited. Like I was excited to try something new and to break out and try something new from AdLeg, which really was my initial motivation, was to use AdLeg as a launching point.
Well, you're both looking at me. I don't have anything to say.
So yeah, from there, we kind of more or less tried to establish what the relationship would look like as equity owners, what our positions would be. You had me read Rocket Fuel, which is really interesting. It was my first understanding of like an integrator and then like what an integrator and visionary relationship is like. In retrospect, I don't think that I'm a great integrator. I think that I maybe have some pain tolerance, so I was capable of being one, but I'm glad that we are where we are now, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, it was definitely a jump, but I was so sparked. I was so fired up just from the results you had. Just so fired up looking at this industry, going like, we're going to do this. I'm going all in. Let's do it.
Yeah, I remember having you read that book, and I think it was important that we both understood those roles of visionary integrator. Yeah, I said, here's the deal. If you want to partner with me on this, I'm the visionary, you're the integrator. Obviously, like those lines are very blurred, and it's not perfect, but just to go into it with that understanding was crucial. I think a lot of people partner up on stuff, and nobody really knows who's doing what, who's responsible for what, who's going to set the vision, what does that really mean? So yeah, great book. I'd recommend anyone looking at partnering with someone on a business should read that. Both of you should read that first and get on the same page.
And I think that's part of the reason you and I clicked. I had come out of the masterminds, just brought in a business partner to the business, literally based on that exact same model. And I think you were kind of mulling on the same thing. And so I think that's part of why we clicked initially too, is just that foundation and underlying of the vision and those two powerful connections put together kind of thing.
Yeah. Another book too, just to mention it, Profit First, and not that we follow that religiously or ever have, but reading that book was a great foundation for us as well, for me anyways, to have a good concept of what to do with money when it comes into a business and how to make sure you get paid.
Yeah, I followed that book pretty religiously for about a year.
We have all 9 checking accounts.
Well, just in the midst of running ad leg and trying to actually start to put more money in my pocket, when I read that book, I opened up all the checking accounts, I followed it, and I did significantly improve my net profit when I was doing that. And I think, at a certain level, you can control your expenses and revenue a little better, and you know how much you're going to be able to profit without setting a set percentage of your revenue in a profit account every month. But if your business isn't taking in a lot of profit, I think that's where Profit First really is going to make the biggest impact on you, getting you to realize that your business needs to make profit. And the only way to do that is to force profit into a profit account and then figure out how to operate the business with what's left over.
Yeah.
He tipped me off to it a couple of years early, probably 2-3 years ago. And it took a year. I fought it and I took a year to implement it just because I just hate that stuff so much, but I probably do it 80% now. I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back.
Even personally, I do it. I look at it as I pay my future self first. Mm-hmm. So when money comes into our account, long-term savings get paid first, short-term savings get paid second, mortgage gets paid third. Mm-hmm. And it's just how we think about money personally. And it made a big impact on me. So
Preston, since we have you here, I just love your perspective on what Drew and I have done. I know you and I talk almost every week. You've met Drew and interacted with Drew a handful of times. Just from the outside looking in, what do you think we're good at as business operators? What do you think we're bad at? How do you kind of look at us as marketing agency operators?
Not just fit and good looking.
Yeah. Well, there's some debate there, but this is going to sound overly simple. I would say decision making. The more you're in business, the more you realize that you're making pivots sometimes and you don't always realize you're making them. And you guys seem to be very, very aware and intentional. Are we making them? When we're making them? If we're making them? And you don't make a lot of them, but when you make them, the pivots and the decisions. So to me, I think that's your strength, is taking in everything. And some of that I think too is just experience, but taking everything in, evaluating it, because there's 17 paths to go sometimes.
Yeah.
And 16 of them are good. But then you pick one. And when you pick one, you pick one. Mm-hmm. That's to me what I think. And it just came to me as you were talking. But and then you go on it. And you don't seem to deter either. No, this is the way we're going.
Yeah.
Made this plan and we're going to stick to it. And, it's not like you're wholesale on it, but sometimes you have to give it time to work itself out.
So I think getting to know you over these few years, you've made a lot of decisions and pivoted, which I think is really interesting because you've gone from wanting to grow and build a big company, a big real estate company, to what you're doing now. So can you talk through that arc and kind of what you've done along the way and where you're at now in your life and how you feel about that?
I mean, the reality is that I'm way more of a lifestyle entrepreneur than I would like to admit to myself. I would say previously would like to admit to myself.
I was going to ask, how long did it take you to come to that?
It took a couple of years. When you live in a self-employed, non-W-2 commissioned life, and when you have a skill set and ability, and particularly today's culture, I think you can just feed on YouTube content and replicating someone else's business model constantly. That's cool. And I think there's value in that, but I play a lot of golf now.
That's awesome.
I go to the gym a lot now, and I don't know. I mean, some weeks I'll work 20, some weeks I'll work 50.
Right.
But really just enjoying a lot of the autonomy that entrepreneurship brings you.
Yeah.
Because, and that's what's cool to see with you kind of pivoting into this Lead Zolo heavily, is like you're getting fired up again. And I'm kind of like, I've been at this 10 years, and there's just been all kinds of nuances and pivots and things that I've made. And, you learn more about yourself, and it's like, well, what's going to get me fired up again, And you just, when you understand the cost of scale and team building and all of that animal, it's like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So, and maybe someday that'll happen. Maybe not.
We were in our last episode, we were talking a lot about growth and identifying plateau. I think that that's probably one of the biggest skills any entrepreneur can have, because you need to shift from like growth operation to focusing on net and expenses and like really grinding things down. And I think what's true in business is true in life, right? And so it can be very exciting to go through a growth phase, but then things can plateau. And what's important about plateau is not to get discouraged and be like, oh shit, I missed the growth stage. Is, to your point, be like, I really like golf. And through my growth stage and learning about wholesaling and sub 2 and flips and all this kind of stuff, I didn't do a lot of golf. And now that I'm maybe not plateauing, but realizing that I don't need to be pushing that hard, I can work on my net line, which is my life and my fitness and my health, and go, hey, I'm also making good money. Like I'm making as much money now, working 20 hours some weeks, 50 hours some weeks, kind of depending on what the weather's like, when I was going through a growth period. But I kind of enjoy this season a lot right now.
Yeah.
And the season could change. And like what you're identifying with Kyle, like, yeah, the last year with Lead Zolo has been kind of plateauy and us working on grinding things down. And Kyle's been working on fitness, and he goes for a run midday every day and things like that. And yeah, we're getting fired up now for Juiced, and we might have a growth cycle ahead of us where we work a lot more hours for a little while until we find that plateau and even out. And
I think that is the skill set of entrepreneurship too, is just is that these peaks and valleys, right? And learning to like, we thrive in those almost to a detriment at some point sometimes, but like that's what the skill set is, I think. And there's so much more that lands in life that isn't always on a balance sheet. Yeah. But that somehow produces a result of the balance sheet, Yeah. And so a little more of a lifestyle entrepreneur these days.
That's great though. But yeah, to your point there, like entrepreneurialism isn't about avoiding the waves. It's about learning to surf. And when things are going well, just ride it.
So what does your life look like? What does the business side of your life look like? What are you doing that is allowing you to go golfing?
So, well, I do a little more than golf, but so we scaled, right? So it'll make sense in the context of finishing my story. So we scaled, we did virtual wholesale, peak COVID. I could not compete with these hedge funds and what they were offering, right? So I pulled back and kind of became a local guy here to our local market, and a little bit more regional too, and I'm just kind of a local house guy. So half of my business is real estate agent, where I help clients. I've been doing that for 2 years. That's been fun. Well, it's just been interesting being on the other side of that line, right? Because there's a difference between being an agent and being an investor. We both kind of look at each other with like, side cocked faces going, we need to work together, but I don't know if we like each other.
We're two sides of the same street.
Yeah. So been a real estate, and actually that part of it has really helped my investment. So now the other half of my business is rentals and flips, and I have an Airbnb stuff. And so now I'm excited to get back into that space and just do more flips and rentals and investing. So I have the luxury of being able to push on the gas when I want to push on the gas, push on the brake when I want to push on the brake. So that's kind of what I do.
And you have no partner?
No.
No team members?
No. My overhead is like almost nothing. It's not nothing, but I mean, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to look back and go, oh, this is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of this, because we're also driven as entrepreneurs too, right? Like, well, I need to grow. And a lot of that, if we're honest, I think is driven by envy.
100%. Yeah.
If we get really honest with ourselves, and social media and YouTube doesn't help that.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's why, like, for me now is a lot about like voice and self-awareness and like, what am I good at? What gets me going? What do I want to be doing? And I do want to be doing real estate. I'll be doing real estate till I die. I love it.
Right. But not every minute of every day until you die, which
Correct.
I think is the important thing to realize.
Will it be all of my life? But in terms of like career, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. And but where that path will take me, who knows?
And you're not feeling any pressure now. Like you're not going, okay, well in 5 years,
100%.
I want to have the office and the team again.
No.
Like it might happen, but you're not
Right.
focused on that right now.
It's pretty loose. It's pretty enjoyable not having a big team. And
Are you now consciously avoiding YouTube and
Yes.
avoiding shiny objects?
yes, it takes a while because that becomes a habit.
Yes, it sure does.
We don't realize it. It takes a while. Like, I mean, just try to turn off all the YouTube and podcasts that you're not listening to just for a week. I dare you. And you start to realize that your news feed is driving your life way more than your actual intentional thinking is.
Well,
We're getting into some other way. Like, I don't know. These are just fun topics I enjoy, but yeah, we're getting into
these are
some
important. Like even you walking in today when you're talking about that flip, and my mind goes, man, how cool would it be to do a flip in Whitby? But then it's just like, how big of a distraction would it be for me to do a flip in Whitby?
right.
Like
At what cost?
at what cost?
At what expense?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Whitby being a small town in Canada,
Yes, sorry, in the 51st.
for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. So thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, the millions of listeners who've never heard of Whitney
Right.
needed Whitby,
Yep.
needed to hear.
And so kind of on your point too, and that's what was also a struggle and interesting too, just in our friendship, is watching, like, Kyle's brain is built to scale. His gifts and his skill set is taking all this data point. Where's the levers? How do I pull the levers? Where do I put people to pull in the levers? And so I'm sitting here like, looking at that going, man, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But then realizing like, there's just a different skill set that I have or drive or different, like just figuring out those differences too, So
Would you agree with that, Kyle? Do you think that your mind always goes to scale? Because I feel like
Yeah,
I think it's a very good observation because I've had that observation of Kyle as well. But I think I've also seen Kyle evolve over the last 18, 24 months pretty significantly through your exit of AdLeg and through the big up and then leveling of Lead Zolo and now Juiced and the software. How do you perceive yourself in that?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I'd say I definitely go to scale. Back when I was running AdLeg and we were doing $50,000 a month, my goal was to build $100 million company. My goal was to basically, not necessarily a company that does $100 million a year, but a company that's worth $100 million, which means it would probably need to be doing like $15 million a year in net profit. It was kind of the loose goal, meaning, and I had it all worked out. It's always been worked out in my head. Like, so that means we need to be doing $30 million a year in revenue with a 50% profit margin. And then I'll have this business that's worth $100 million. And I don't remember where that came from or why 100 million has been the goal, but kind of everything I've done since I got that in my head has kind of been through that lens of, can this scale to $100 million valuation? Because that's the end that I have in mind. My thinking, my decisions are guided by that. And because that's such a bigger scale than what I'm operating on, I'm always thinking of how to scale, how to get there. Definitely, I've accepted that that's going to take a long time, obviously. Like Tony Robbins says, people overestimate what they can do in a year. They underestimate what they can do in a decade. So a decade ago, when I was trying to crack $10,000 a month, never could I have imagined that I would be at $1 million a month today. So that quote is absolutely true. And so I'm thinking about business through this lens of trying to get to such a higher level than I'm at. Mm-hmm. And I've learned that, yeah, that's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 10, 20, 30 years, but probably 10, 20 years from now, I'm going to look back on where I am now and think like, man, your goals weren't high enough. Like you weren't thinking far enough ahead. Now, I've recognized now that doesn't necessarily mean a top line revenue number. My limited thinking now might be in the net profit number. I might be thinking too small in terms of net profit and dealing with a plateau in a business. Maybe we can get to a 50, 60% profit margin. Like, is that crazy to think about? I don't know. Maybe in 10 years, we're still at $1 million a month revenue and we have a 80% profit margin somehow.
Right.
And I'm looking back and thinking, wow, you were thinking small, thinking you could only get to a 50% profit margin.
Because you can look at the person that's doing 10 mil and that's what's going on behind the scenes. I love that quote, underestimate what we can do in a decade. Because I think what sells in influencer space is FOMO.
Stripe account numbers, baby.
That's what sells. And so you completely, what's not talked about is that long vision, which is a much more sustainable vision for scale.
It is, and defining scale, right? Like we say scale, we think revenue. I think most people think 100%, revenue.
100%.
But at the end of the day, what does scale really mean? Well, it's different for everybody. So if scale means I want to get to $10 million a month because I want to take home $2 million a month, well, you might be chasing a vanity metric there. To Kyle's point, like maybe you only need to be at $3 million a month to take home $2 million a month. Maybe like, why do you want to take home $2 million a month? Maybe you don't actually need to take home $2 million a month to live the life that you want to live. And you're going to spend time stressing and chasing that growth rather than going golfing on Tuesday. Because really you want to make $2 million a month so you can go golfing on Tuesday.
So what's the real value?
Exactly.
Time.
What's the real value?
Scale might be the amount of money you're making per hour or per minute. So maybe, just maybe, your revenue could decrease. Your net profit could decrease. But because you're working 2 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week, you've significantly scaled your revenue per hour. You've significantly scaled what you're making, and now you're scaling your free time, and you have more time to do things outside of work. Now, luckily, I'm not trying to work a lot less because I love the things that I'm working on. But it's definitely one way to look at it. Like, there's probably more things to scale than we're even thinking of.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think my observation is when I think of somebody who's focused on scale are the people who are focused on work and working a lot and putting a tremendous amount of pressure on it. And my observation with you over the last 18 months, and it's probably been longer than that, I've noticed it in you because I'm trying to facilitate it myself, is you have extreme patience and like you don't operate on a timeline. Like let's get to $100 million, but you're not like, let's get to $100 million by next year. And we're going to
if we don't,
we're going to red line until we get the end. If we don't, we're going to be disappointed. You're just like, well, I see it. I can see how we're going to get there and it's going to happen. And we just need to make good, sound, intelligent decisions. And that's what'll get us there. And sometimes that takes time and contemplation. And that's an admirable skill in its own.
And I could never get Kyle to go golfing. He still won't go with me.
You've never gone golfing?
I have gone golfing, just not with Preston.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what that says, but yeah.
I'm afraid to start playing golf.
Yeah,
because
time commitment.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to get obsessed with it.
Oh, you will.
And then I'm going to have to go golfing every day.
Buy clubs.
It's not easy. It's still not easy. I still not great, but to like get okay is It's
the problem, right? It's like you've never played golf, it's fine. You go play golf once and you see how hard it is. You're just like,
right.
well, I've got to work on that chip. I hit one really good chip on that all of 18 holes yesterday. So now I've got to go work on my chipping, and yeah, it snowballs.
Cool.
Well, I think that wraps it for this episode of That Agency Podcast.
That's the name.
That is what it is.
Well,
it's not even just a name. It's
That
an identity.
Agency Show.
That Agency Show. That's right. I apologize.
Right. My co-host can't remember the name of our show, but hopefully everyone listening can remember.
Too complicated for me, apparently. And a great place to go to listen to That Agency Show would be at thatagencygroup.com.
Yes, that is our free group.
That is our free group.
Very cool.
Preston, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for
It was
coming
fun
out.
to just go through the story for sure.
Yeah. Loved your insights and hopefully
Random co-working guy in That Agency Show.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll get me out golfing someday.
Yeah.
And my expectations of myself won't be so high that I need to like start golfing every day.
You're
from
good.
there on out.
Yeah, good luck with that. So you're going to have a spreadsheet lined up the day after.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Preston.
Yep.